Dracula by Bram Stoker. Chapter 26. Mina Harker's Journal. "I shall get a steam launch and follow him," said Lord Godalming. "And I horses to follow on the bank, lest by chance he land," said Mr. Morris. "Good," said the Professor. "Both good, but neither must go alone. There must be force to overcome force if need be. The Slovak is strong and rough, and he carries rude arms." All the men smiled, for amongst them they carried a small arsenal. Said Mr. Morris, "I have brought some Winchesters. They are pretty handy in a crowd. There may be wolves. The Count, if you remember, took some other precautions. He made some requisitions on others that Mrs. Harker could not quite hear or understand. We may be ready at all points." Dr. Seward said, "I think I had better go with Quincy. We have been accustomed to hunt together, and we two, well armed, will be a match for whatever may come along." "You must not be alone, Art. It may be necessary to fight the Slovaks, and a chance thrust, for I don't suppose these fellows carry guns, would undo all our plans." "There must be no chances this time. We shall not rest until the Count's head and body have been separated, and we are sure that he cannot reincarnate." He looked at Jonathan as he spoke, and Jonathan looked at me. Of course he wanted to be with me, but then the boat service would, most likely, be the one which would destroy the vampire. Why did I hesitate to write the word? He was silent a while. During his silence Dr. Van Helsing spoke. "Friend John, this is to you for twice reasons. First, because you are young and brave and can fight, and all energies may be needed. At the last, and again, that is your right to destroy him, that which has wrought such woe to you and yours. Be not afraid for Madame Mina, she will be in my care. If I may, I am old, my legs are not so quick and run at once. I am not used to ride so long or to pursue as need be, or fight with lethal weapons, but I can be of other service. I can fight in other way, and I can die, if need be, as well as younger men. Now, let me say, that what I would is this. While you, my Lord Godalming, and friend Jonathan, go on your so swift little steamboat up the river, and whilst John and Quincy guard the bank, where perchance he might land, I will take Madame Mina right to the heart of the enemy's country, whilst the old fox is tied in his box, floating on the running stream, whence he cannot escape to land, where he dares not raise the lid of the coffin box, lest his Slovak carriers should fear leave him and to perish. We shall go on the track where Jonathan went from Bistritz over the Borgo, and find our way to the Castle Dracula. Here, Madame Mina's hypnotic power will surely help, and we shall find our way. All dark and unknown otherwise. After the first sunrise, we near the fateful place. There is much to be done, and other places to be made sanctify, so that the nest of vipers be obliterated." Here Jonathan interrupted, hotly. "Do you mean to say, Professor Van Helsing, that you would bring Mina, in her sad case and tainted as she is to that devil's illness, right into the jaws of his trap?" "Not for the world! Not for heaven or hell!" He became almost speechless for a minute, and then went on. "Do you know what the place is? Have you seen that awful den of hellish infamy, with every moonlight alive with grisly shapes, and every speck of dust that whirls in the wind a devouring monster in embryo? Have you felt the vampire's lips upon your throat?" Here he turned to me, and his eyes lit on my forehead. He threw his arms up with a cry. "Oh God, what have I done to have this terror upon us?" And he sank down on the sofa in a collapse of misery. The Professor's voice, as he spoke, in clear, sweet tones which seemed to vibrate in the air, calmed us all. "Oh, my friend, it is because I would save Madame Mina from that awful place that I would go. God forbid that I should take her into that place. There is work, wild work, to be done there, that her eyes may not see. We men, all here, save Jonathan, have seen with our own eyes what is to be done before that place can be purified. Remember that we are in terrible straits. If the Count escape us this time, and he is strong and subtle and cunning, he may choose to sleep for a century, and then in our time, dear one," he took my hand, "would come to him and keep him company, and would be as those others that you, Jonathan, saw. You have told us of their gloating lips. You heard their ribald laugh as they clutched the moving bag that the Count threw to them. You shudder, and well may it be, Forgive me that I make you so much pain, but it is necessary. My friend, it is not a dire need for which I am giving, if need be, my life. If it were that any one went into that place to stay, it is I who would have to go, to keep them company." "Do as you will," said Jonathan, with a sob that shook him all over. "We are in the hands of God." Later. Oh, it did me good to see the way that these brave men have worked. How can women help loving men when they are so earnest and so true and so brave? And, too, it made me think of the wonderful power of money, what it can not do when it is properly applied, and what may it do when used basely. I felt so thankful that Lord Godalming is rich, and that both he and Mr. Morris, who also has plenty of money, are willing to spend it so freely, for if they did not, our little expedition could not start, either so promptly or so well equipped, as it will within another hour. It is not 3 hours since it was arranged, in which part each of us was to do. Now Lord Godalming and Jonathan have a lovely steam launch, with steam up ready to start at a moment's notice. Dr. Seward and Mr. Morris have half a dozen beautiful horses, well appointed. We all have maps and appliances of various kinds that can be had. Professor Van Helsing and I are to leave by the 11:40 train tonight for Veresti, where we are to get a carriage to drive to the Borgo Pass. You are bringing a good deal of ready money, as we are to buy a carriage and horses. We shall drive ourselves, for we have no one to whom we can trust in this matter. The Professor knows something of a great many languages, so we shall get on all right. We have all got arms, even for me a large bore revolver. Jonathan would not be happy unless I was armed like the rest. Alas, I cannot carry one arm, but the rest do. The scar on my forehead forbids that. Dear Dr. Van Helsing comforts me by telling me that I am fully armed as there may be wolves. The weather is getting colder every hour. There are snow flurries, which come and go as warnings. Later. Took all my courage to say good-bye to my darling. We may never meet again. Courage, Mina, the Professor is looking at you keenly. He is looking as warning. There must be no tears now, unless it be that God will let them fall in gladness. Jonathan Harker's Journal, October 30th, night. I am writing in this light from the furnace door of the steam launch. Lord Godalming is firing up. He is an experienced hand at the work, and has had 4 years of launch of his own at the Thames, another on Norfolk Broads. Regarding our plans, we finally decided that Mina's guess was correct, and that if any waterway was chosen for the Count's escape back to his castle, the Sereth, and then the Bistritza at its junction, would be the one. We took it that somewhere about the 47th degree north latitude would be the place chosen for crossing the country between the river and the Carpathians. We have no fear in running at good speed up the river at night. There is plenty of water, and the banks are wide enough apart to make steaming even in the dark easy enough. Lord Godalming tells me to sleep for a while, and it is enough for the present for one to be on watch. But I cannot sleep. How can I, with terrible danger hanging over my darling, and her going out into that awful place? My only comfort is that we are in the hands of God. Only for that faith it would be easier to die than to live, and be so quit of all the trouble. Mr. Morris and Dr. Seward were off their long ride before we started. They are to keep up the right bank far enough off to get on higher lands, where they can see a good stretch of the river, and avoid the following of its curves. They have, for the first stages, 2 men to ride and lead the spare horses, 4 in all, so as not to excite curiosity. When they dismiss the men, which will be shortly, they will themselves look after the horses. It may be necessary for us to join forces, so if they cannot mount our whole party. On the saddles he has a movable horn, can be easily adapted for Mina, if required. It is a wild adventure we are on. Here, as we are rushing along through the darkness, with the cold from the river seeming to rise up and strike us with all the mysterious voices of the night around us, it all comes home. We are seen to be drifting into unknown places and unknown ways, into a whole world of dark and dreadful things. Godalming is shutting the furnace door. 31st of October. Still hurrying along. The day has come. Godalming is sleeping. I am on watch. The morning is bitterly cold. The furnace heat is grateful, though we have heavy fur coats. As yet we have passed only a few open boats, but none of them had on board any box or package of anything like the size of the one we seek. The men were scared every time we turned on our electric lamp, and fell to their knees and prayed. 1st of November, evening. No news all day. We have found nothing of the kind we seek. We have now passed into the Bistritza, and if we are wrong in our surmise, our chance is gone. We have overhauled every boat, big and little. Early this morning one crew took us for a government boat, treated us cordially. We saw this way smoothing matters, so at Fundu, where the Bistritza runs to the south, we got a Romanian flag, which we now fly conspicuously. With every boat which we have overhauled since then, the trick has succeeded. We have every defence shown to us, not only any objection to whatever we choose to ask or do. Some of the Slovaks tell us what a big boat passed them, going at more than usual speed, as she had double crew on board. This was before they came to Fundu, so they could not tell us whether the boat turned into the Bistritza or continued up the Sereth. At Fundu we could not hear any such boat, so we must have passed there in the night. I am feeling very sleepy. The cold is perhaps beginning to tell upon me, and nature must rest some. Goldeming insists that he shall keep first watch. God bless him for all his goodness to poor dear Mina and me. 2nd of November, morning. It is broad daylight. That good fellow would not wake me. He says it would have been a sin to, for I slept so peacefully, and was forgetting my trouble. It seems brutally selfish of me to have slept so long. I let him watch all night, but he was quite right. I am a new man this morning, and, as I sit here and watch him sleeping, I can do that all is necessary as to minding the engine, steering, and keeping watch. I can feel that my strength and energy are coming back to me. I wonder where Mina is now, and Van Helsing. They should have gone into Veresti about noon on Wednesday. It would take them some time to get the carriage and horses, so if they started and travelled hard, they would be about now at the Bogo Pass. God guide and help them. I am afraid to think what may happen. If only we could go faster, but we cannot. The engines are throbbing and doing their utmost. I wonder how Dr. Seward and Mr. Morris are getting on. There seem to be endless streams running down from the mountains into this river, but as none of them are very large at present, at all events, though they are terrible doubtless in water, and when the snow melts, the horsemen may not have much obstruction. I hope that before we get to Strasbourg we may see them, for if that time we have not overtaken the Count, it may be necessary to take counsel together on what to do next. Dr. Seward's Diary. 2nd of November. 3 days on the road. No news, no time to write, if there had been, for every moment is precious. We have only just had the rest needful for the horses, but we are both bearing it wonderfully. These adventurous days of ours are turning us useful. We must push on. We shall never feel happy till we get the launch in sight again. 3rd of November. We heard at Fundu that the launch had gone up the Bistritza. I wish it wasn't so cold. There are signs of snow coming, and if it falls heavy it will stop us. In such a case we must get a sledge and get on. Russian fashion. 4th of November. Today we heard the launch, having been detained by an accident when trying to force a way up the rapids. The Slovak boats get up all right, by aid of a rope and steering with knowledge. Some went up only a few hours before. Goldeming is an amateur fitter himself, and evidently it was he who put the launch in trim again. Finally they got up the rapids all right, with local help, and are often on the chase afresh. I fear that the boat is not any better for the accident. The peasantry tell us after she got on the smooth water again, she kept stopping every now and again, so as long she was in sight. We must push on harder than ever. Our help may be wanted soon. Dracula by Bram Stoker. Chapter 26. Mina Harker's Journal. I shall get a steam launch and follow him, said Lord Goldeming. And I horses to follow on the bank, lest by chance he land, said Mr. Morris.